subcommittees.
Having it be 6:30, or actually a little bit after, I will call this meeting to order. If you could at this time shut off all your cell phones or put them on vibrate, and if you have to take a call, please take it out of the lobby of the town hall. Tim will not be at this meeting tonight. He had to excuse himself. And Rags will be late. And at this time, if we could stand. And Peter, would you mind?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have in front of us a copy of the minutes from the August 30th meeting. I hope that everybody has had a chance to peruse them. If not, we'll just take a minute to look them over. Any comments? Skip.
Hate to be a downer, but under the town budget fiscal report at the very end, where it says that Mr. Waring answered all of the budget committee members' questions and they thanked him for the update. Certainly we thanked him for the update, but no, he did not answer all of the questions. There were a number of questions that I asked that remain unanswered, and a number of the questions I asked to Selectman Grenier also remain unanswered to this point. So that part is factually untrue.
Okay.
And that can be seen if you review the tape either, well, probably if you looked at the LRPA tape or video, you can see all of the questions that were asked.
So noted. Anybody else? Is there any motion to adopt the minutes as changed?
I make a motion that we do not accept these minutes because of that update is necessary.
Okay, is there a second? Seconded by Peter. Any comment? All those in favor of the motion? Oh, sorry, Chris, go.
Weren't you going to just make that amendment? And weren't you suggesting to someone motion to approve the minutes with that amendment?
Yes. But he made a motion to not accept the minutes.
Okay.
Is there a way we can, what are you looking for, an adjustment that says they were not answered and specific questions that still need to be answered? Do you want to put that in there, have that put in there?
I would like to see the specific questions that were asked to which there were no answers either from Mr. Waring or Selectman Grenier. Because those were questions that I think we do need to know, especially the fire and the police ones, looking at the salary numbers as to how come they were so far advanced in expenditures versus the timing of that of the reporting. You know, the question was, why are they so high at this time of the year on that idea? And there were several other areas where I was asking questions as well, to which we did not get answers.
But weren't those, I thought the ones that weren't going to get answered would get answered during the subcommittee meetings?
No, that was for the fiscal oversight rather than the budget that we're starting on today. We may get answers, I don't know, but for right now, as far as the minutes are concerned, they don't reflect the reality of what happened at the last meeting. Regardless of whether we get the questions now or at subcommittee or what have you, I just wanted to make sure that they were outstanding.
Do we have a plan for getting them resolved?
Selectman Grenier said that he didn't know some of the answers and that he was going to get answers to them. I haven't heard back at this point. He may have them when he comes in.
Would an email from Glenn be sufficient?
As long as they can get included into the official minutes, but let's find out what they are first before they get included into the minutes.
Could we change the final sentence to say something like, just strike the phrase, Mr. Waring answered all of the budget committee members' questions, and just say the budget committee thanked him for the update? So that, take out the offending phrase.
Well,
I think that can be a second motion, but there's a motion on the
Yeah, there's a motion.
I think it's a case where we have to have it designated that we didn't get answers. And that's really what it comes down to.
Glenn, do you have anything to say?
I'm just, I don't know what questions remain unanswered. I know there were some questions that were asked that evening, and I said that I couldn't answer them, and they would be better directed at the department heads, but at this point, I do not have a list of unanswered questions that somebody is waiting for, so I guess until that's presented, I'm not sure what you would like me to do or not do.
Well, I would suggest we wait for Rags to come, and maybe he has some of those answers, and see what happens. But I would like to see what the answers were.
Okay.
And that's really the gist of why I'm bringing it up.
But the question, the minutes will have answers that weren't answered during the meeting. I mean,
Yeah.
aren't the minutes reflecting what happened during the meeting? You're asking for answers that didn't occur during the meeting.
Well, if we put in a phrase that basically says we are still waiting for answers to questions outstanding, I would be okay with that.
That's
That
fair.
makes more sense.
Okay.
That's much better. Thank you.
Okay.
So,
With that change, it's,
And I would be willing to amend my motion.
and I will second
Okay.
that
To do
motion
that.
so we can move forward.
Okay.
okay, any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed, nay? The ayes have it. Now to the setting of the subcommittee assignments. And, oh, I'm sorry, first, public comment. Any member of the public for comment? Thank you. And before? Goop up. Angela, can we redo that vote for 1 second? All in favor say aye for the motion that Skip made for the adoption of the minutes. We have to redo it.
No.
Because,
Aye.
well, you were not here, so,
You have to.
Yeah, I don't
you
give
have
this
to
up, I
abstain.
can't, you're right.
yeah,
I agree with changing them, but yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So if we could just redo it just for the record.
For the vote you're taking right now?
Yeah, just
Okay.
for the record. All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed nay. One absent, and then an exemption, and one exemption. Thank you. Mr. Ayers.
Let me explain my situation. I'm scheduled to make my presentation for the Department of Planning and Land Use to you on the 25th. I have a conference scheduled for that same time frame, and I'm wondering if you could reschedule me for the 15th of November.
And would that include conservation, or?
It certainly could. As far as I know, they would be willing to go to that date. They're also willing to present on the 25th of this month, so I don't
just say
know.
move. I have no problem moving both of you down to the 15th.
And I do have a question, because I'm looking at this and I see on the last page, administration boards and commissions. Boards and commissions, I'm thinking maybe, is that subcommittee going to review the Conservation Commission's budget? I mean, typically, planning and land use and conservation are covered under the same.
No,
Group, but
there
it
is,
doesn't all
there is actually a subsection for boards and commissions in our budget, so, no. Anybody else have a problem moving them down to the 25th? I mean, to the 15th of November from the 25th?
I'm sorry, could you say which ones they are again?
Planning and land use and the Conservation Commission.
Move down to the 15th.
Yeah, we kind of did it so, knowing that people were going to have to move around.
Conservation. So if you could let Lee and Carol know, thank you.
Yes. So that's good? You're
That's
okay with
good.
that? Okay, thank you.
So, on that committee is Tracy, Tom, and Tim.
Which committee?
Planning and land use. And they'll probably do the conservation budget too. So, John, when would be a good time to meet with you?
With me?
Yeah.
My schedule's pretty wide open, except for the 25th and 26th.
So, Tracy,
Yes,
what days were you not gonna be here again?
I will not be here. November 8th.
So if you could let John, meet with John or talk to Sandy and then talk to Angela so we have a notice out for the public.
Okay.
Great.
Schedule with him and then just let me know and I'll
Okay.
post it. That way he's the
I'll
one you
schedule
wanna
it.
meet with, I'm just gonna post it for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Chief Gary, when would be a good time to meet with you, sir? Anytime? Anytime? In the afternoon, okay? Okay.
I think it's Kelsey.
Jack, would that be okay if we meet in the afternoon? Or are you more morning or?
I think.
What day? I'm sorry, I was trying to get into my calendar right now.
That's November 1st, so.
Hey, Sean?
Yes.
May I make a suggestion that you just quickly run through who's on which committee, so that way we know who needs to know planning?
We just got this. And can we, and I just
Did I?
realized
Oh,
that,
I'm sorry, didn't even see it. Never mind.
I just realized I'm on 8 committees.
Lucky you.
I'm just sitting there.
Hey,
know
I
you
did
were
the
on
same
52 last
thing.
week, I know, but I'm just saying, I'm looking at this going, oh my gosh.
Yeah, I think I might be there too.
Yeah.
And look at the list. But remember, well, that's school, so don't worry about that, that's schools.
Oh, yeah, I am around 6.
You're only.
But I'm not on the school then.
So if we meet, let's say, and that's Tim, Jack, Kristen, and myself, what day would, anytime after school, correct?
Yes, I could do any time on Thursdays.
Okay, Thursday,
I assumed you were having it just before this meet, on the day of these.
Thursday the 18th, that's fine with me, say 4:30?
This is October,
Yes, is that okay?
4:30 is fine.
Okay, Chris?
Mr. Chair, can I, instead of going through every one of these groups and trying to match schedules right now, can I suggest, so like in years past, you identify one person from each of these to do an email exchange with
Yeah,
that
we can
group?
do that.
and
I
just
mean,
set up
I
a
just,
date?
yeah, that'd be better, you're right.
It is, it
I
would.
mean, I just remember like last year during the schools, we had trouble setting up committees and everything.
I would just go right through your list you got here and circle either the top person or circle someone and say, you're in charge of this group, make sure you get a meeting in before such and such a date.
Could you explain to us, how did you do this? So do you usually meet the day before the
No,
group
couple,
session,
two,
a couple of days before?
Couple days, like the fire department, we'll meet up at the fire station. And I'll take charge on that one. So when you get there, and when you look at the questions that you wanna ask, I mean, a lot of it has to do with, is if there's a big increase, definitely ask. If it's a small increase, maybe ask. If it's a decrease, we kinda don't care, we're just happy.
I guess I'm more not understanding how you set these up. It's a couple of hours, a couple of days before.
It could be a week, a couple hours, it depends on how long the meeting is.
You want enough time to write a little report.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then
Somebody
I'll
sent it
write
to
I'll
say-
write the
reason
report
for
up.
the
Somebody to
couple of
write a
days.
report
Okay.
from that subcommittee
Okay.
and give enough time to kinda create it, get it solidified. So it's probably at least a day before, or 2 or 3.
Does that report have to go to everyone before we get here?
No, just
or
email it to Angela,
to Angela?
and then she'll get it out to everybody.
Okay.
And we'll,
Okay.
that person who has the written report will give a
see.
statement at the meeting.
Okay, thank you.
So, okay, we do it that way. Finance appraisal and technology, Skip, it's me, you, or Tim? How would you like to do that?
Let's pick on the guy who isn't here.
Okay, Tim.
Okay.
Health and welfare, Tracy, Chris, or Kristen?
Well, see, I have that day off if you'd like me to do that, because my schedule's a little easier.
Sure, that's fine.
Okay, that'll be
Okay.
fine. Library,
So Tracy's,
Peter, Joe, Kristen, or Tim?
I'll do I'll do the library.
Parks and Rec, Peter, Joe, or Tim?
I'll do that. Can I get scratched from the library one?
Yes.
Yeah,
There's nothing personal.
Yeah. No, there's four.
There's three, and then,
Yeah.
yeah, that should be
And
fine.
who's doing the first one, the fire rescue?
That'll be me.
Okay,
But
thanks.
I think, Steve, we said the 18th, correct? Yeah, and so it'll be the 18th at 4:30 at the station. Is that okay, Jack? 4:30?
For the 18th.
Yeah.
Yes.
Angela? Is that
Yes.
okay?
I've got it.
Thank you. Planning and land use, Tracy, Tom, or Tim? That, Tracy?
Shall, I will do that as well.
DPW, Jack, Sean, Kristen, or Sue?
I'll do that one.
Okay. And Jack, have you met our DPW director yet?
No. Hi. Is that Kyle?
What?
Kyle?
No,
It's not Kyle, right?
no, it's Jay.
Jason.
Jason. Sorry, Jason.
No, that was good.
Other culture and cemeteries, Peter, Kristen, or Tim?
I'll do that one. If you don't mind, Peter.
So that's like next week.
That's next.
So we got to get together soon.
Okay.
The other culture. I
Actually,
assume
there is no other.
It says other culture and then there's
Cemeteries.
cemeteries. Where is cemeteries?
Cemeteries
Cemeteries
is
is on the 8th of
18th.
November.
8th of November down with DPW.
Oh, okay. Okay, so
Parks
we'll
and Rec
split
is
it.
next week too.
So how do we know who else we contact?
Other culture and cemeteries, would that be D?
He does the cemeteries, other culture is $125 for Memorial Day.
Yeah, I mean, that's
That's easy.
basic. That's easy. I mean,
That's
that's a
easy.
yes.
But I don't have D. Chitty's email
No,
address.
just, Jay can get, or you can call down DPW, correct? Yeah, just call down DPW.
So we really won't have to meet for other culture, but we'll meet
No.
for cemeteries.
Police,
I'll do it.
okay. Capital improvement set. TCTC and elections and registrations. Sue, Joe, Kristen, and Tim.
Did we skip this?
I'll do that.
Okay.
Where is that? I think Chris.
Oh, photography.
Okay.
And the last one, which is
Who's doing police?
Police is Chris.
Chris, okay.
capital improvements also.
Yeah. And tax collector.
Judges, Joe.
Sean,
Yes.
I'd be willing to pitch in with Tim on capital improvements.
Well,
He's already done it, hasn't he?
It's
Yeah.
already done?
yeah, it's already set.
Oh, dang.
Sean, is it possible for me to not do that one? Because I look at the 18th, I got Parks and Rec to do, squeeze that in next week. Someone else could do
Sue,
the,
you want to call us out meeting with Denise?
The town clerk?
Yep.
So Sue's gonna take town
Town clerk and elections and reg.
Okay, so is Joe gonna be at that meeting or no?
Joe, you'll be at that meeting, right?
I
it's-
You're not gonna
I will
take the
try
lead.
to, I'm just looking at next week's schedule, I'm hoping I can arrange for both of them, I just can't guarantee both right now.
And then the big one.
And that is like next week.
Yeah, that's next week. Yeah, that's, yeah, town clerk tax and election. And that's next week's basically. Which would be Chris, Tim, Skip, Peter, or Tom. And actually, we could probably set it right now with Scott sitting here.
Basically, that's all you,
That's all Scott's
that's all
budget,
Scott.
basically. Who would like to ask?
November, October. I remember that one from last year.
That's a long
What do we know?
It is.
Administration
It
board
can be.
information.
It can be a long one.
This one Sue said she'd take over from Joe.
Josephine also cleared it.
So,
too.
Monday at 5?
This one isn't.
Monday at 5, Scott?
Thank you.
Fantastic.
This coming Monday?
yeah, cause that means next
Okay.
Thursday.
Monday the 15th at 5 p.m.
We're scheduling right now.
Peter?
Oh.
Yeah, that's good.
Are
Monday,
they all gonna be
Monday the what?
certain time?
No.
The 15th.
15th.
No, I mean, what is the time frame they're normally within? I'm trying to find out. I'm in Concord all day, so I have to basically leave work. So
What time do you get out?
I don't get out till 5.
I don't get out till 5 either.
5:30?
5:30 would be better for me.
5:30, I may be a couple of minutes late, but yeah.
Scott, that all set, 5:30?
Pretty much ruins my evening, but I can do that.
I was too.
It's already ruined.
About 6 a.m.
I could do 6 a.m. I could do 6, 7, probably 8 in the morning. Mornings aren't a problem. To 5 o'clock, I make
Years?
Monday the 15th at 5:30.
It's fine with me.
5:30 by then.
That works.
Said the 15th, right?
10:15 at 5:30.
And Angela, if you could just let Tim know.
When I send the email with the notice,
Yep.
I will make sure everybody gets it.
Thank you. And thank you to the department heads, and now Mr. Dunn. Budget's all yours. Floor's all yours, I should say. The school?
We're gonna do it after this.
What about the police?
No, go. You have to say.
What about police?
Oh, Chris. I'm sorry. Did I ask you? Chris said he was doing police.
Chris McDonough.
Chris
Oh,
McDonough
okay.
said he was doing
Thank
police.
you. I thought you meant,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, I figured we'd do it after
I was a
work,
little
'cause I'm
confused.
sure somebody works 9 to 5, that, you know.
See what day it works for you?
Anytime after 4 works for you.
Say that again? About
I'll
Tuesday?
throw some options out to the group.
Or it could be Tuesday afternoon.
This one is
So yours, Scott.
So before I begin, we had a handout tonight, came with a cover letter, a memo from me. So why don't I give you folks 2 minutes to read that, and then I'll begin my presentation.
I'm reading this.
relatively small pages. Are they printed bigger here in the book? Or are they revised?
No, it's a revision of some material already in there, but that's,
Okay.
it's small.
Okay, all right, so we can't look at, the larger print isn't reflected.
I
in
don't,
these.
not for those,
Okay.
3 specific pages.
Scott, are these in the spreadsheet, or can we get them in a
They're in
spreadsheet?
the spreadsheet that I emailed to you.
Kristen,
Yeah,
bring up the spreadsheet and just zoom, make the fonts larger.
I'm
That would
looking at
help.
it now, it's not on the computer.
Yeah, I
That's what
know, I know, but
I-
just thought I'd,
If I had thought, I'll wear different contacts.
Some might consider that information superfluous anyways. I wouldn't spend too much time.
Okay. I just thought maybe by luck it was one of the bigger ones in here.
an occupational hazard.
You all set, Joe?
Yeah.
Okay.
Ready?
Go ahead.
So normally this memorandum would have accompanied your budget books when you got them, but last week I had a family emergency, so I was not able to have that prepared in time. Our primary goal was to get you the budget books, and so that's why this is came about a little bit late. So, welcome everybody to the fiscal year 2019 budget preparation process. Most of my remarks are probably geared to the new folks here, the folks who've done this before. I think y'all know the drill and how it works, but so we've given you a budget book that is just packed jammed with figures and information and paperwork, and so my advice to you new folks is don't let that overwhelm you with the volume of stuff that you have. You can take it a little bit at a time. Your best bet is to prepare as you head for your subcommittee meetings, and then refresh your memory as you prepare for your weekly meetings here with what's in there. But I certainly would not recommend that anybody sit down and read it cover to cover with an attempt to memorize all the data that's in this book, because then you would be overwhelmed. And there's probably more information there than you will ever need to know. And I think when you meet with your subcommittee members and you sort of put into context what it is they've asked to do and how those numbers fit and how it's tracked over the years, I think it'll make a lot more sense for you. So again, I'm just trying to caution you, don't let it overwhelm you. One thing I'd like to have you keep in mind is that the budget before you tonight is the selectmen's budget. It's not the town administrator's budget, it's not the department manager's budget, it is the selectmen's budget. If you want to throw stones at the selectmen, not at the town administrator, not at the department managers. The budget itself is still a work in progress. It'd be nice if we could say, here you go, this is all we need to do, but that is not the case. As we stand here today, we still don't have our insurance figures. We get those, I think we'll get those next week. So we'll be revising the budget on that basis. We'll also be revising the budget, as I mentioned in the memo, on the buildings and grounds, as we're still putting that together. I don't think the bottom line number will change. If it does, my hope would be that it would be a little smaller. But that one is a work in progress, because we decided to redo that completely this year. There were a lot of things in there that just seem to be buried. For instance, who knew that we spent $16,000 a year for the dumpsters at Glendale? It was buried in the budget, so we're breaking that out, putting it in the Glendale account, that type of stuff. It's possible as you go through here that you will find mistakes. There's a lot of figures, so I would welcome that being called to my attention, and we will fix those. We already caught one mistake in between the time the budget books were prepared and the time the email was sent out on the spreadsheet. There was a flaw in a formula under the revenues. It's not going to change the bottom line that the selectmen did, but revenues again are still, they are also a work in progress.
our end goal is to make sure that everything is done as accurately as possible, so to the extent that you folks are able to facilitate that process, then your input is by all means welcome. Another thing to keep in mind, we do not yet have a 2018 tax rate. So the figures that you've been given thus far and that we've used for comparison at this point are simply estimates. I don't know when the tax rate will be set. That's done by the state. We're doing everything we can to make sure that we're in the queue in a timely manner, and then they call our number and set the rate. We did some projections when we set the budget last year. We refined those projections as the year has gone along, and in the end, DRA will give us those numbers, and then they'll be plugged into another spreadsheet. So probably the most important page for you to take a look at tonight in terms of a budget presentation is under the General Information tab, that very first spreadsheet, which is a summary page. It pulls together all of the, sort of adds up all the different departments as to what they are. And then we subtract the revenues, and then we have a DRA formula. But probably the most important figures in terms of what the selectmen and I look at when we put this budget together are the last three lines in this, last three rows in this budget column. So the first of those three is what's called the total tax commitment. Does everybody see that? It says municipal only. So that's really, one of the things we look at very closely in terms of how does it all add up. And you'll see that this year the selectmen under total tax commitment have recommended $9,098,850, which is $534,000 less than was asked for, $41,000 more than last year's total tax commitment, which is up less than 0.5%. And so I think all in all, the selectmen were pretty pleased to have a budget, tax commitment budget, that's up less than 0.5%. The next important figure in the process is the assessed valuation. Again, we do an estimate here, and for the purposes of coming up with our estimated tax rate, the selectmen have used a figure of 1.5% growth in our valuation. You'll see, I think as you may have already read, we're doing a revaluation in 2019. So I think that 1.5% is a very conservative number, and I think the number will be higher when all is said and done. And if that's the case, then the tax rate will be lower. If the number were to be less than a 1.5% growth, then the tax rate would be a higher number. Which brings us to the last row in that column, that estimated tax rate. So you can see through the spreadsheet going back to 2015 how we started with a budget number and then turned it into an actual number. And as you work your way across, again, on the 2018 actuals, that's an estimate. It's not yet been determined. And so we're looking at projecting at this point a 5-cent tax rate increase on the municipal portion of the tax rate, which is less than 1%.
Scott, question for you, mostly for the first time folks here. Do these numbers for 2018, since we're working on 2019, do these also include the cost of all of the special warrant article prices that are they wrapped in here as well?
Yes.
Or is it just the
No, it's in here.
operational?
It's operational, and you'll see, the first highlighted line as you work your way down is the total operating budget, and then there's a line item after that for special warrant articles.
Okay.
So that's broken out, but it's factored into the totals.
All right. So people can see what the operational is
Yep.
versus the special warrants.
Yep.
Okay. That's an important thing to
what
know.
we've done over the years. The other difference between this one you have on paper and the email I sent with the spreadsheet attachment, that spreadsheet actually goes back and includes 2013 and 2014. So just 2 more years of data that wasn't able to be fit onto a page. I could have fit it on the page, but it would have been very small print.
Thank you.
Hey, Scott, is this a whole town reevaluation or a part of?
This is a
Couple
whole
of
town
pockets.
revaluation in 2019,
And the last time we did that was when?
2014. We do it every 5 years.
Every 5 years, for the whole town.
Yes.
I thought we were doing
Is that-
this every,
Well, we
20% every year.
Every year we
You
do
do a
20% of the houses in terms of visiting them and measuring them and doing that. So when we do a townwide reval, it makes that process a lot simpler and a lot cheaper. If you can find a town in the state of New Hampshire that can do a reval for $34,000, which is what we're doing, I will eat my hat. And that's because we do that, every year we do that cycle of 20% of the values in town.
So the 5 years is SOP. We've been doing that.
State law.
It's state law.
State law requires us to do a revaluation every 5 years.
Oh, yeah.
You had mentioned about the warrant articles. The warrant article, the actual is not been spent. Is that for the waste system or what?
No, it's a lot of stuff, you know, there's probably 20 warrant articles. A lot of it has to do with money that we're putting into capital reserve funds, and we do that at the end of the year. That's probably more than half. And so I anticipate all of the $950,000 that we had for the recycle center project will be spent this year.
So how does that sit down to this 0.05 cent increase in, because if you track along, it's, you know, it's in the $5 range all the way across, and then we get into the 0.05 on the bottom line, the municipal tax.
That's a dollar increase.
Right, but the dollar change has been about $5.
It's 5 cents.
No, I'm going from 15 onward. If you go across that line.
So I'm looking, so the dollar changes from the current year?
Yes, I understand.
So given that our estimate for this year was 501, and our estimate for next year is 506, that's where the 5 cent change comes from.
Okay. But is that caused by the warrant articles not being spent?
There's nothing to do with that at all. We're gonna assume that all the warrant article money is gonna be spent.
Okay.
If it's not spent, it'll be carried over, and
that would cause the rate to go down.
That has nothing to do with the rate at all. What we spend this year has nothing to do with the tax rate. If we spend less than what we budgeted, the extra money will go into surplus fund balance, but again, it has nothing to do with the tax rate.
The $5 are the rate. The $5 figures are the rate itself. The 5 cents is just the change. So it's,
Does that make sense?
Yeah. I just was wondering how that special warrant article not being spent so far.
Yeah.
I was figuring in that.
And like I said, that particular one, I anticipate we're gonna spend every single penny of it, because we're going back to $400,000 next year.
And tell us again why there's an additional 400,000 for the recycling center.
Because the project cost about 1.3, and we only had $950,000.
So we didn't budget enough.
Correct.
And the selectmen decided to take that out of the funds balance, correct? Or are you going to
Well,
issue another warrant article?
There'll be a special warrant article next year for the $400,000, with all of that money to come from fund balance. So it won't have an impact on the tax rate. And just about everything in the capital budget is anticipated to come from fund balance, so it doesn't really have an impact on the tax rate.
But to be clear, it had an impact on prior tax years.
Oh, yeah, and it's taxpayers'
I
money.
mean, we pay for it no matter what.
Correct. Yep,
You mean there's no free money?
there is.
Darn, I wish there was.
So the last piece, as far as my presentation goes tonight, and I apologize for the small print, but in your books already, you had these 3 pages called the Personnel and Operating Budget Summary. The pages in the book were based on the department requests, and these 3 pages have revised the numbers to be based on the selectmen's recommended budget. So it's more of a final picture in terms of what the selectmen have decided for you, and it is small print, but if you open up that spreadsheet that I emailed you, you can blow it up as big as you like and you'll see those numbers there. So that's the presentation in a nutshell, and now I'm happy to answer any questions for tonight.
Any questions? Joe, you all set? Tracy?
I am.
Tom? Kristen?
I think we did a darn good job.
I'm all set. Peter?
I need a couple of goods here, okay. I think I'm all set.
Chris?
Just a point, I mean, the bottom numbers that Scott highlights are great and fantastic. But when we go through the budget, we're scrutinizing the operating budget, which he's showing as a 5.25% increase. The fact that we're not doing as many warrant articles this year offsets that mostly. I know we haven't got to schools yet, but since that's why I'm here, when the superintendent asked the school board, what do you want us to do for a budget target, we told them we want another flat funded budget. So our target is 0, and the operating budget for the town is 5.25% increase. Because we don't lump our warrant articles into the total budget thing as presented the way the town does. Just to highlight that.
And that was one reason why I asked the question, the separation of the two, warrants versus operational. So we can do A to B.
Sue, any questions?
Not just now, thank you.
Jack? Skip?
Devil is going to be in the details, and I frankly haven't had the chance yet to get into the details.
Actually, Scott, where in this spreadsheet do you dump these 3 worksheets?
You can just stick it in the back of your general information tab. You know, it's just a different way of looking at the same information that you already have.
Okay.
Just by the way it's grouped. In almost every instance, that you already have that information. But for example, you know, if you look at the health insurance column on my handout tonight, you know, that you would, short of somebody going through and pulling it all together, that's what I've done here. So if you look at the last page on the totals, you'll see that health insurance is down $57,022 for next year's budget.
Okay, I get it. So if I understand clearly, all of this data is correctly in the spreadsheet. It's just in a different format. I got you.
Yeah. Let the fun begin. Oh, and lastly, my last comment is, and that is, you folks are about to do a lot of work on this for no pay, and for that, the town is very much appreciative of the efforts that you're making.
There's the free money.
There's the free money.
Is this first thing we get when we pay for it?
Yes.
Yes.
Ooh.
No, just kidding.
Okay.
Now. Okay. Earlier in August, I received an email from the Vice Chairman of the Alton Budget Committee, Mr. David Hershey. And he asked me to bring this before the Guilford Budget Committee. And this went to the Guilford Budget Committee, the Wolfboro Budget Committee, the Farmington Budget Committee, the Moulton Borough Budget Committee, the Tufton Borough Budget Committee, and the Town Manager of Meredith.
Can you repeat that slowly, please?
Every lake town, pretty much.
Well,
Not really.
it's the Alton Budget Committee, the Wolfboro Budget Committee, the Guilford Budget Committee, the Farmington Budget Committee, the Moulton Borough Budget Committee, the Tufton Borough Budget Committee, and the Town Manager of Meredith. And his email says, "My name is David Hershey, and I am the Vice Chair of the Alton Budget Committee. If you are anything like me, a fair amount of thought goes into the review of individual budgets with the goal of achieving best practices while instilling confidence with our fellow taxpayers. The collections are spent effectively in a manner that eliminates waste and maximizes the goods and services procured by our respective administrations. The purpose of this email is to measure, while solicit your support in contributing to a benchmarking spreadsheet where we will all have access to various indicators as a means of identifying revenue/expense anomalies within the process. As an example, we will plug in via a shared Excel worksheet key data points such as year-round population, seasonal population, miles of town roads, number of buildings, number of fire engines, police cars, etc. The spreadsheet will include calculations that will produce a matrix of a specific asset, such as fire engines, firemen, mile roads, on a per capita or budget basis. The construction of the spreadsheet is a bit of an undertaking which I'm happy to do, but the effectiveness of the process is contingent on everyone's participation. And I won't read the rest, but that's basically it in a nutshell. And I am bringing it before the Guilford Budget Committee to ask what the Budget Committee thinks. Jack, go first.
Why can't we link in the New Hampshire Municipal Association and have them organize and execute that project versus just the towns he named around here? I would think that would be a more useful way to go about that. It's a very interesting exercise, and a lot of that information is stuff that I'd like to see, but it seems like it would be more beneficial to be a statewide, because then you'd have state comparisons. I know these towns are reasonably comparable, but it would be useful if they did it as an objective administrative body.
I was just going to ask, do we know the response from the other recipients?
He has said everybody is on board when I emailed him and talked to him.
And that was recently?
It was end of August, beginning of September.
And all the other towns are willing to go
That's what he
forward?
has told me. As far as I know, I've not talked to anybody on these town committees or Mr. Warren.
I gotta tell you,
So who's the person that's gonna supply all this information?
I believe he would like me to supply it to him, and then he'd go through and do the spreadsheet. But I mean, this is all stuff you can get on the internet, right, Scott?
Public information.
Public information.
Sounds like a lot of research to me.
Actually, it's
Am I
hard to
missing
get,
something?
it might be public, but it's hard to get some of that stuff, right?
I can say that these towns are not similar, because my first year on the budget committee, I was the one who did the salary analysis of all of the like-sized towns in New Hampshire comparable to Guilford, both in landmass, numbers of people, the budgets and all of that stuff. Since then, it has become harder to get this data, but, you know, Farmington is not the same as Guilford. Tufton Borough is certainly not the same as Guilford. So I'm looking at this going, several of them are. Moulton Borough, Meredith are certainly similar to Guilford, and I had included that into my study many years ago. So you're looking at an apples to not apples comparison here. Based on what you said, Sean, I'm not entirely clear what the entire purpose is of this. Saying metrics is a nice word, but metrics of what? What is it trying to determine? I mean, there was last year the whole idea that was floated by some people out of the county administration of going fire and police regionalism. And when I listen to this, I'm thinking, well, what is the ulterior purpose of this? Is it something similar? I mean, I don't mind doing comparisons to comparisons when the comparisons are real comparisons. If he's just doing a research project, have at it. But I don't think that on a per capita basis he's going to be able to come up with much because of the disparate population figures, the disparate valuations, so forth and so on. Now, can you normalize some of that and put it in the aggregate? Yes. But I think that this is a very small number of folks to be doing that with. I would say not New Hampshire Municipal Association. I would say it'd be more of a state function. They have a lot of data analysts. I would say go to the DRA, sort of what the New Hampshire Department of Education does, all kinds of stats on the education side. I'm quite sure that he would probably be better served by going to the state for these numbers, because they probably exist at some places at the MS form level. If he wants it at the GL level, I would say, sure, but I'll tell you, that's going to be a massive data analysis process. Again, if you're not measuring similar communities, I'm not sure what he's looking to get.
And I wonder why Center Harbor's been left out.
I don't know, this is what he has sent me, and these are the towns that he has chosen.
I say we
Say no
table
to
it, say no, and we have enough on our plate, don't
Yeah.
we?
I would not even just recommend tabling it, I would
just
Just say no
I'll
to
make a
it.
motion that we say no to it.
Perfect.
Motion's made, is there a second?
Second.
Second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? None opposed, okay.
Again, Guilford's gonna be different if the others did say yes.
Well, we're not so different as some,
I
but
think it's
we
kind
are.
of leading the way.
Okay.
Any other comments? No comments from the public? Anything else come up before the budget committee? Hearing none, I will take the motion to adjourn.
My apologies for my delay in getting here today. I left the class early yesterday for selectmen's meeting. I felt I couldn't 2 days in a row. And pardon my hat and everything, because I'm soaked. We were outside all day, and my hair's a mess.
We thought you might have got caught up in a squirrel thing.
I have a certain hair standard, and this doesn't.
So who made the motion to adjourn?
No, we need a motion
No.
to adjourn, we'll just adjourn.
Okay,
Whoever said it, I seconded it.
okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Meeting
Crop TV.